Alright guys, welcome back. So today I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about spare fuel storage solutions for the Himalayan, and really for any motorcycle for that matter. So let's get to it. Alright, so down at this end of the table we've got the SW-Moto front rack spare fuel storage canisters. Each canister carries 3/4 of a gallon, or about 3 liters of fuel, and they're very robust, super sturdy, thick plastic, and they mount right to the front of the Himalayan on the front racks. This was the solution that I went with when I went to Colorado, thinking this was going to be my long-term solution. Next in line, we've got the very standard and well-known MSR fuel bottles. These are very common on a lot of people's rigs. Each canister carries just under a liter. Next in line, we just have a variation of the canister. It's a slightly fatter canister that carries 1.5 liters. So if you just want to carry one canister as opposed to two, and 1.5 liters is the volume you're looking for, that's a good solution. Next in line, we've got the rectangular fuel canister, also plastic, carries 2 liters of fuel. So 2 of these obviously is about a gallon. But this is a very unique solution because of its shape, and it fits in places that maybe some of the other solutions don't. And lastly, of course, down here we've got the 2-gallon jerry can, which you're probably not going to want to strap to your bike, but it's really good to keep in your garage, especially if you want to store stabilized fuel over the winter, or if you want to store ethanol-free fuel as well. So always good to have one of these in your garage. All right, so obviously there are more fuel storage solutions than what I have on the table here, but these were just the particular items that I picked up that I've been sort of experimenting with. So I will show you how each of these fits on the bike and how they can be used, and then ultimately what I think I'm probably going to go with when it comes to both short and long distance treks. So let me pull the bike out and I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so you may recall from watching some of my previous videos that for the longest time I had these SW-Moto super sturdy and robust spare fuel canisters mounted to the front of the Himalayan, one on each side. Now, I decided to go with this solution because I wanted to be able to carry 1.5 gallons of extra fuel, thinking that when I took my trip to Colorado I was going to be stuck in places in the mountains where I was going to need that much spare fuel. Well, I learned very quickly that that's just not the case, at least not for most of the United States. I really only ever used one of these, and in all honesty, I could have gotten away without any of them. I would have just needed to fuel up more at gas stations. So I really didn't need to carry this much extra fuel. And not only that, but these canisters are so big and bulky, and they stick out so far on the front racks that I just wanted to go with a different solution. Now, if I was riding up in Alaska or Yukon or Inner Mongolia or something, then yeah, I would probably want to carry these big, bulky, very sturdy extra fuel canisters. But for my purposes, riding around in Arizona, Colorado, Utah, in this part of the country where there's gas stations a dime a dozen, this is essentially overkill. And so I decided to just use one for the longest time, but it really bothered me because of the asymmetry. Like, I didn't like the fact that I only had one fuel canister on one side and a storage bag on the other, which leads to my final point of, if you have these on the front, then you remove the possibility to have any extra storage up front, which is what I came to learn that I really needed up front, was quick access to more storage. So let me show you some of the other solutions that I decided to go with. So another solution for the Himalayan that I think works really well for at least my situation is this SW-Motech 2-liter canister. The reason I love this canister so much is because A, it holds 2 liters, which is 2/3 of what the other canister holds, so it's not really that much smaller, but also because of its shape, I can fit it right in this front bag anyway, and there's still plenty of room in here for other stuff. So I can still fit my GoPro stuff in there, a drone or something in there, a water bottle, whatever, and it fits perfectly well and it lays flat. And I could even get 2 of these, put one on each side, and I'm carrying more fuel than I would have been with one of those canisters. So one of the other things that I really like about this particular storage solution is if I don't want to carry it up front in one of the front bags, it fits perfectly in the hard panniers of the Himalayan right here in the back, and I can cram some stuff up against it, hold it in place, and I've got 2 liters of fuel sitting in my hard pannier. I could even go so far as to strap some heavy duty Velcro on the back and strap it right up against the side of the pannier. Something else about this particular container is that SW-Motech actually makes a bracket that you can bolt right to the outside of your pannier so that you can mount this just like that. That way you're keeping it on the outside and you don't risk any leaking of fuel inside your panniers or bags. And lastly, when it comes to this type of container, if you don't want to store it in your pannier or outside your pannier or in your front bags, you can always mount it to your rear rack using simple rock straps or other kind of straps. And it's small enough and sits far enough out on the rack that you still have plenty of room for a duffel. So this is a really sleek solution that actually carries a decent amount of fuel, especially if you have 2 of them. You can stack them, you can put 1 in each pannier, 1 in each front bag. There's just a lot of options when it comes to this. So for a long distance trip where you actually want to carry a decent amount of spare fuel, this is probably what I'm going to go with. So moving on, we've got the classic 1 liter MSR fuel bottle. These things have been around since the dawn of time. They're incredibly sturdy, can take a beating, and are notorious for not leaking. So they're really great bottles. You can buy them for about 20 bucks at an outfitter store or online. It says it only carries 887 mils, but that's because they technically don't want you to fill it past this line, but you could probably get almost a full liter in here. What makes these bottles so nice is not only do they fit in front bags like this, I can put this right in here just like the other container, and I've got a ton of space still in here, but they're so small that they can basically be strapped anywhere. You could strap it to the front of your pannier, you could strap it here, you could strap it just about anywhere you want on the bike because it is so versatile. You can put it in your pannier just like the other container. But here's the really cool thing about this container, and let me show you around back. So you might recall from some of my previous videos that I installed these tool tubes on the bike, and they're really awesome storage solutions for keeping little things that you need handy. In my case, and as the name would suggest, I keep my tools in here. So I've got my handy dandy tool roll right here. Now, incidentally, this tool roll also fits perfectly in this front bag, leaving the tool tube open where it perfectly fits one of the MSR bottles of fuel. So this is also a really great solution for carrying just enough spare fuel where if you get in a pinch, a liter of fuel on the Himalayan might get you 15 miles, maybe. But that might be enough to get you out of a sticky situation and back to a gas station. And what's great is I installed a tool tube on both sides. So if I really wanted to carry enough fuel that I know will get me out of a sticky situation, I just got to take the stuff out of this tube, put that stuff up front in one of the bags, and put the other MSR bottle in here, and now I've got almost 2 liters of fuel completely sealed up and independent from the rest of the bike. So even if it leaks in here, it's all self-contained. So a really great way to store just a little bit of extra fuel that you might need. And just to add one more point to this discussion is you can install these tool tubes just about anywhere on the bike with these universal mounting kits. So instead of putting the bottle directly on the bike, you just mount another tool tube somewhere and you've got a sealed container for a bottle. There's also certain bags that you can buy out there that hold these bottles that are soft bags that you can strap just about anywhere to the bike. So you've got multiple solutions for carrying these little emergency fuel bottles. And lastly, we've got the 1.5 liter variation on the fuel canister bottle. Now, because this is 1.5 liters, it won't fit in my tool tubes. However, the tool tube company does make a fat version of their tube which does hold bottles like this. So you can actually get a tube that will fit this. The reason that I got this bottle is because I wanted something metal, not plastic, that if I knew I wanted to carry about 1.5 liters, but in one container, I could take this container and put it in one of my front bags on its own. And that way I only have to fill one side. I've got a single bottle, but I'm still carrying enough fuel where I could actually get probably about 30 miles out of it. Well, last but not least, we've got the 2-gallon jerry can of fuel. Now, it's very unlikely that I would ever carry something like this strapped to the bike, simply because it's so big, and unless I'm going somewhere ridiculously off-grid, I'm not going to need to carry this much spare fuel.
But I could certainly strap it to the back rack if I needed to. And incidentally, this canister almost fits in the panniers. So you could probably find a 2-gallon or a 1.5-gallon canister that does actually fit in the factory hard panniers as well. Mostly though, I just recommend keeping one of these around in your garage because it's a great place to store either ethanol-free or stabilized gas. So if you want to top off your bikes before winter, or you need to fill up your lawnmower or your snowblower or your scooter or whatever, it's just nice to have a little bit of spare gas laying around that's been stabilized or is ethanol-free. All right, well that's going to do it for me. I hope that some of this information was useful and informative, and that you will figure out your own best solution for carrying spare fuel on your bike. So take care, be safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.